Heavy snow and rain developing along with thunderstorms, and we're going to be tracking the precipitation totals as we get through our weather impact storm. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods, and the rain has finally arrived. It held off a little bit longer, got us through the morning commute, was kind of some good timing there. Low pressure system, though, sitting off the coast, so much more to come along with that cold air, which will help with instability in the atmosphere and bringing down those snow levels as well. We have the potential for some decent amount of rain coming through with some minor flooding occurring throughout the valley and the coast. This is going to be more in the way of nuisance flooding, say ponding on the roadways, some storm drains that are clogged, some creeks and streams that are coming up close to their banks. It's not going to be river flooding, although we'll be talking about which areas of the Sacramento River are going to be seeing some rises. Our weather alerts are in place. Winter storm warning in the Sierra, wind advisory through the valley, wind gusts up to about 45, even in some places higher than that as we head through the afternoon and evening. And again, we're expecting some rainfall that could create some minor flooding along with the dangerous and changing Sierra travel conditions. So we've got our weather impact alert in place right now. This takes us through our Thursday, with the impacts being our travel as well as commute times, especially for the evening commute. Prepare for delays and just be ready to deal with some of the minor issues with the flooding. Our weather playlist is always on ABC 10 Plus, so remember to download that for free wherever you stream on TV, live, local, and always on. We're also going to be playing some weather explainers, which will also build out just the weather story as we move through this active weather period. Because when you see how much rain and snow is on the way, not just with this storm, but through the 10-day forecast, you'll see why we're going to build this story out just a little bit more, keeping up with those storm highlights. And we have shifted things just a little bit. Valley rain still on target, ½ an inch to an inch. Sierra snow 2 to 4 feet, but the snow level in pockets now down to about 2,500 feet. Again, the potential for some thunderstorms coming our way and wind gusts 40 to 45 mile per hour plus. So far, we've seen wind gusts upwards of 40 to 45 miles per hour throughout the valley, close to 60 mile per hour peak gusts for San Francisco. It's gusty in the Sierra as well. So when you combine that with the snow, it's near whiteout visibility, or near whiteout conditions and low visibility in some areas for the Sierra. Let's start off with that wind advisory in terms of the alerts. We can see that the wind advisory is in place throughout the entire valley and the coast all the way until 11 o'clock. So the wind gusts that we've seen already associated with the main front that's going to come through. We still see the lingering impacts through tomorrow with the precipitation, but the wind, it is today. So for the 4 p.m. hour, right around the time we start that early commute, you can see wind gusts are still roughly about 30 to almost 40 miles per hour in the valley. Parts of the foothills and the Sierra will stay quite breezy until we get to late tonight. And then things will start to quiet as the passage of that cold front and the big bulk of the winds starts to subside. But then we start talking about the accumulated rain impacts. We've just now started to see some of the rain picking up in the Central Valley. The bigger bulk of the precipitation still sits off the coast. This is what's due in for the afternoon and evening. Snowfall, it's been fairly light for the Sierra, but it will continue to pile up, not only for today, but through tomorrow. As far as the rain, though, it's a little bit of a different story here. Bulk of the rain comes through for today, so we pick up nearly ½ an inch of rain for today for the valley and the foothills, but then the back edge of this moves through with about another 1/10 of an inch for some locations, closer to about ½ an inch for some of the foothills and places like Tracy near the Bay Area. Tracy Triangle there, a very big commute area, nearly an inch of rain coming in. So there are going to be areas that will see some slightly higher totals than others. That being true as well, where we see any of the thunderstorm activity. A cell sits over you, you know how it goes. All of a sudden, those rain totals really bump up. Our muddle snowfall, and we'll look at this just through at least today, and that snow will be falling down to about Applegate with about an inch. That's going to be optimistically speaking. Now, one place that I want to point out, Kingvale and Donner. So roughly about 2 feet of snow coming in today alone. We're going to nearly double that in some places like Kingvale by the time we get through tomorrow. And this is what I was mentioning. The snow impacts, they're going to linger into our Thursday more so than the widespread precipitation throughout the valley. We'll see that along Highway 50 as well in terms of just sheer numbers. We see impressive totals going on for today, but then we see even more coming in for tomorrow as well. And that snow line continues to showcase the falling snow level down to about 2,500 to 3,000 feet early Thursday, and then staying at that 3,000 foot level through our Thursday afternoon. When we talk about chain controls being that low in elevation, that is going to be very slow going over the passes for people that are pulling off, having to chain up, and then very slow up the hill as they travel along 80, 50, 88, and 89. Some of those mountain passes are closed still for the season because we still have winter weather in place. Winter storm warning will stay in place through our Thursday evening. That's why I was mentioning, even though if it's clearing out in the valley, don't put your guard down when you head up to the Sierra, because we are going to find some big impacts lingering into tomorrow. Not to mention the amount of snowfall that's coming in. Caltrans is going to have to keep those snow plows going throughout the overnight hours into early tomorrow, and that could delay things a bit, clearing off the roads. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw periods of road closures as well, just based on having to clear the roads, not to mention any spinouts that occur. And anybody that's traveled those roads knows exactly what I'm talking about. The biggest bulk of rain, though, again, coming through for our Wednesday afternoon. And then we see that precipitation slide its way eastward into the foothills through 5 p.m. Now, the snow, you'll see there's very few breaks in that steady snow in the Sierra. Whereas the valley, we're seeing more scattered showers develop into our Thursday. Plus, we're going to bring in the potential for thunderstorms as well. Instability, the moisture in place, colder air. It's going to be a decent day for us to showcase the chance of those thunderstorms coming on through. And we'll see that right through the morning, afternoon, and even into the early evening before things quiet down, with our severe weather outlook really showcasing that Thursday time frame that we'll be looking at for the potential of our thunderstorms rolling on through. Getting a look at our weather timeline. As you can see, Wednesday is our big day that we open up the storm door, so to speak, and we'll continue it going into our Thursday. Heavy rain, snow, windy for our Wednesday. Snow level will start to lower, so a lot of changing conditions coming our way for the afternoon and evening. Once we get into Thursday, things kind of level out a little bit for our snow level. It stays roughly 2,500 to 3,000 feet, but the rain and snow continue to go, as well as thunderstorms. So we're bringing in an extra element into our Thursday. Now, Friday into Saturday, we've got a weaker weather system on the move. It'll be mostly a Friday player with a few lingering early showers for Saturday. I know it's opening day for Little League, and it looks like the timing is going to be pretty good for this because the rain and snow looks like it's going to start to taper off early Saturday. There's a lot going on in the Pacific. We've got a weak little trough that's going to be moving on through Friday, but then another bigger weather system brewing that's still a little bit on the moderate to high uncertainty on how that will exactly play out. But the Weather Prediction Center is saying that we are going to continue to stay in that zone of heavy precipitation over the next 3 to 7 days, as well as snow for the Sierra, and that extends all the way into the southern Sierra as well. Winter storm severity index also in play. Major to extreme risk will be intact for the next 3 days. So this particular storm here is the one that's putting us in that zone from, again, the amount of snow as well as the hazards that come along with it. Going back to this timeline here, I'll play it out a little bit longer because there's a key feature that I want to point out. Thursday morning, we'll still have spotty showers throughout the valley. Snow is steady in the Sierra. We get this break coming in right after about sunset for the valley on Thursday, all the way through early Friday morning. Now, the reason I wanted to put a pause there is we have our total lunar eclipse coming Thursday night to Friday morning. It begins at 11:26. It ends at 12:31 with that maximum eclipse at 11:58. We'll still see mostly cloudy conditions, but at least there's a chance of not a complete washout of this total lunar eclipse. So it all begins at 8:57. Then the partial eclipse will begin at 10:09. As we move into the Earth's shadow, that's when we'll start to see that moon turning that reddish glow, if clouds will participate with us, into that maximum eclipse. Total eclipse again ends at 12:31, And then we start to wind things down just after midnight into the early hours of Friday. And that's right about the time that we're starting to track that next band of rain coming in, because again, very active Pacific going on. It's just a weak little trough that moves through on Friday. So in terms of precipitation totals, they're not as nearly as impressive as what we're seeing for today. So here we go on Friday. We're right back into the action. We have the cold air in place, so keep that in mind. We are going to see some lower elevation snow, not super, super low. It's just until we get a little bit warmer here for the afternoon, we're going to see the potential for some of those lower snow levels. Into our Friday afternoon, not the greatest news if you're trying to kick off the weekend a little bit early on Friday evening, but here we are at 8 a.m. Again, Little League starting up this weekend. Right now, timing is playing out pretty nicely here. As we head into the end of our weekend, though, here comes that bigger weather system that's moving in from the Pacific, and the storm track will be favorable for us to pull that in late Sunday through the beginning of the next week. It just seems like this storm cycle doesn't want to stop. But when we look at the average monthly rainfall, this is about it, folks. March is our last kind of effort to bring in some rain and snow. Once we get into April, May, June, it's like the pipeline basically stops across the Pacific, and we'll be lucky if we get anything. Not to say that we haven't had great Aprils and May. It's just statistically speaking, it just doesn't happen regularly. Statewide precipitation, we still have big deficits. The season started off amazing. Our water year starting October 1st of last year, we saw 2 huge atmospheric rivers come through, got us off to a great start. Then that dry January hit where we got virtually nothing. We had the horrible fires in Southern California, and then we started to see these deficits grow. Now, February picked up nicely, and we've actually seen a really decent March. Most of that has been really helping Central and Southern California, because when we were looking at the end of January, the Central and Southern Sierra, the numbers just were not good at all. A third of our water supply comes from Sierra water melting, the Sierra snowpack melting. So we call that the snow water equivalent. If we were to take all that snow, melt it down, how much water would we about get out of that? Gravity takes it downstream. We hold it in reservoirs, and then we pump it through our conveyance system. And I'll go over that in just a moment. But new numbers out for today. As you can see, about 75 to 95% of average running north to south here throughout the Sierra. And since we're very, very close to that April 1st date, when we typically see more in the way of snow melt instead of snowfall, we're starting to see those numbers kind of close the gap. We only have about 2.5 weeks to go until really we get to that April 1st number. And that's a key indicator date as well for water managers to say, okay, this is about how much water we can expect from the Sierra. And then it's just a matter of managing that through the dry season, which I showed you the average precipitation. By June, it's only about 1/4 of an inch, and that's on the optimistic side. In terms of our reservoirs, they're really full right now, actually. You notice that Folsom's a little bit lower, only about 63% of capacity, and I'll show you why. A look at New Melones, Don Pedro, as we're starting to head into the Central Valley, about 75 to 80% full. San Luis, that's our off-stream pumped reservoir. Really kind of a nice feature there because it's not directly snow melt fed. Water managers can kind of move that water around a little bit differently, taking it from the Delta, moving it there, and then pumping it into the California Aqueduct, which runs all the way into Southern California. Millerton, smaller reservoir, about 60%-ish full. But again, I go back to the fact that the water year started off so slow for the Central and Southern Sierra. So I would very much expect those numbers to be on the lower side. All right, let's take a look at how water managers are kind of trying to work these water numbers right now. Shasta is our biggest reservoir. It holds 4.5 million acre feet of water. So there's our capacity line right at the top here. This is the yearly flow that we've been seeing. Again, we had a great February, huge inflows because we had such a dry January. So water managers just allowed that thing to fill up. But as we started to dig deeper into February, basically we couldn't hold too much water because we still had March, which tends to be a wetter month, yet to go. So they had to start those releases. Many of us were seeing things rise like the Sacramento River, the Yolo Causeway, where we drive over that Yolo bypass water that feeds there was starting to come up. And then things started to quiet down a little bit. So water managers allowed things to start to fill up again. That's pretty much where we are for today for Shasta. The outflow, only about 6,000 cubic feet per second. The inflow, 16,000 cubic feet per second. Again, that's the state's largest reservoir. Now let's look at a smaller reservoir, Folsom. It feeds a lot of the Sacramento capital region. That only holds about 900,000 acre feet of water. So we cannot have a bunch of water coming in and expect that there's capacity to hold that. So you'll notice that the outflow is a bit higher than the inflow right now. And it's very likely to be the case. So along the American River, which takes water from Folsom into downtown Sacramento, that's going to be flowing at not only a higher clip, but also a faster pace. Look at our California water conveyance system. This is a network that can get so incredibly complicated. It's been making big headlines recently. Our biggest reservoirs in the northern part of the state, that's Shasta. There's Lake Tahoe, by the way, just kind of getting our bearings, and there's Folsom. So it's kind of just downstream from the Tahoe Basin. And then Shasta, obviously, is our biggest reservoir. That's going to put water into the Sacramento River. Everything then goes into downtown Sacramento, where the American River and the Sacramento River meet, goes out to the Delta, gets pumped to San Luis Reservoir, and then can make its way down the California Aqueduct. Now, there's many smaller reservoirs, and there's a couple of big ones, too, like Oroville, Trinity. We've got some big ones out there. And New Melones and Don Pedro are actually pretty big as well. Those are going to be on the east side of the state. And again, we've got some river channels that can move that water through the state. One of the things that I don't think people fully understand is that each river has different capacity. They're built differently. They have different flow capacity. And so we have a lot of rules and regulations into how much water we can hold, because if there was a big weather event, it just cannot be moved very quickly through some of those river channels. That is very true in the central and southern part of the state. The northern part of the state, our rivers tend to be just bigger. We can move bigger water bodies through. Feather River, American River, Sacramento River. But then once you head down to the Macomb, to Walney, all of those rivers tend to be just a little bit tighter and just not the complex conveyance system up north. Again, we take that California aqueduct all the way into Southern California, where that water will feed the state through the dry part of the year. I mentioned the YOLO bypass just a moment ago, where some of us that take the causeway coming from downtown Sacramento over to the Bay Area, and how that fills with water sometimes during the year. Well, that's all part of the Sacramento River process that have naturally occurring weirs. Those are going to be gates that just naturally open as the river gets too full, flows into agriculture areas that can use them, or floodplains, and it takes the pressure off of everything coming downstream into downtown Sacramento. The only one that is manually operated is going to be the Sacramento Weir. That has not opened this year, and I've heard that they're not anticipating opening that. But the Tisdale Weir, that is expected to flow here over about the next week or so as that river gets a little bit higher. Some releases happen out of Shasta, and everything again starts to flow downstream. So we'll be watching those weirs. We'll be watching all of the rivers as well. For the Sacramento River at I Street, that's going to be right in downtown. Here's monitor stage, here's flood stage. We're so far below that, even with the precipitation that's heading our way. So things are actually looking pretty good. I will say this. We really want snow right now. As far as the water, we have enough water, and water managers have been having a little bit of trouble trying to figure out earlier in the season what to do with that, especially in February, because a lot of the farms were just idle. Agriculture was a little more dormant. We didn't need as much water. We're almost past that part where agriculture is starting to pick up a little bit as we get warmer and things are starting to plant and things like that. So at least we're kind of ending that dangerous territory where we have so much water we can't do anything with it, and that just runs in this successive cycle. If we get some of these colder storms, that is a free savings account of water up in the Sierra, what meters off through the warmer part of the year, and then that feeds our reservoirs. As we look ahead to the 8 to 14-day weather hazard outlook, we have this moderate to slight precipitation risk in the higher category, as well as snow. So again, if these weather systems stay cold, I know it's not super great because it's, we want to have spring weather, but that does bode well for the potential to hold more of that naturally occurring reservoir of snowpack. As far as our high wind risk, we are in that slight category once again. So we'll watch as these weather systems pick up. Likely cooler weather pattern, by the way, staying in place to almost the end of March, and likely wetter, at least for Northern California. But what I like to point out here, look at that Pacific Northwest, likely wetter, which is almost right on target for what a La Nina pattern would be looking like. And it's looking like when things are all said and done, this water cycle and water year will play out in a very typical La Nina pattern. Our water vapor loop showing some of the moisture coming through into our Friday, hitting Southern California. That's some good news there. I will say one caveat to all of this. There may be snow on the Grapevine. So if you have travel plans that are taking you south on Friday into Saturday morning, just want to plan ahead because that will shut things down there along the Grapevine heading into Southern California. Monday, we get that next plume of moisture coming through really overnight Sunday into Monday. And then next late Thursday through early Friday, even into the end of the week, we have another chance for some showers to come on through. Now, there's only moderate to high confidence. We'll be staying cooler than average and a wettish pattern continuing. But as far as the timing and totals and the snow levels, that's the lower confidence range. Those are things that will continue to update as we move closer. Speaking of cooler, look at this. We've got temperatures only near 30 for tomorrow afternoon in the Sierra. As far as Pollock Pines, we start off at 32 degrees. We'll see snow, 35 degrees for that afternoon high with 50s and 40s down low. Along the coast, we've got highs in the 50s. We're talking about 40s for morning lows, afternoon highs warming into the mid to upper 50s as we make our way through our Thursday. Again, not the heaviest precipitation day, but we will see more in the way of some colder air, really feeling the impacts of that colder air moving through. Morning lows starting off near 40 to 45 degrees in the Central Valley. We'll see hit and miss showers. Again, the thunderstorm potential goes up for our Thursday. Highs will only warm into the mid to upper 50s. If you're trying to remember or just wondering what the average high is, it's about 65 to almost 70 degrees this time of year. So this will be unseasonably cold weather coming through for our Thursday forecast. Winter saying, oh no, we are still in astronomical winter. Spring hasn't quite arrived. We're in meteorological spring, but not astronomical. That hits on March 20th. Looking at our 5-day regional forecast, we are going to continue to see active weather Thursday into Friday. Heading into our Sunday, Monday forecast, that's when that next weather system starts to move on through. So if you're trying to get up the hill to do some skiing and snowboarding, I'd say Saturday is one of your best bets there with highs right around 40. Active weather Thursday into early Friday for the foothills. And then we'll see another storm roll on through there. Saturday, again, our dry day throughout the region. If you're trying to figure out your weekend plans, Saturday into actually most of Sunday will be a pretty good time frame there. Our weather impact alert continues into our Thursday. We'll feature that chance of thunderstorms for our Thursday forecast in the valley and the foothills. By Friday, our next weather system rolls on through. Right now, timing pretty good for Saturday, kicking off the weekend and through most of our Sunday. It's just we'll see more cloud cover coming through. And then for St. Patrick's Day, if you do have plans outdoors, be prepared for the potential of showers. We'll be tracking that as our confidence starts to grow as the weather models come into alignment for that end of the weekend, early work week forecast. And then again, we will warm up a little bit, but generally still below average next week. And we'll check on that Friday storm as we draw closer. But we've got a lot in play here. We've got the lunar eclipse overnight Thursday into early Friday, weather impact alert day on Thursday, St. Patrick's Day on Monday with the chance of showers. And again, by the time we're wrapping up the next work week.